Well, hello everyone. Hi, this is Joelle Lydon, and I wanted to welcome you to this live Google Hangouts event. We'll see how it goes. It's one of my first sort of experiences doing it this way. I typically have done interviews where it's a closed circuit, so I'm just really kind of excited about doing this and having an opportunity to share answers to your most pressing relationship and men questions and dating questions and love questions and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm so excited. Igniting your love spark. That's the theme tonight. And we'll see how we can do in terms of answering your questions. So the way I'm going to let this night sort of unfold, the next hour unfold or thereabouts, is that I'm just going to start by telling you a little bit about myself, just so that you get a sense of who I am and how my work came about. We're going to also then talk a little bit about some of the things that hold women kind of stuck in their relationships. And then we'll get right to the juicy questions. So I'm going to provide for you, here, see if I can set this up, a place on the side. So, I don't know if you can see this actually on your screen or not, but there on the side, there's a place for you to post your questions if you haven't already sent a question to me ahead of the game. So a little bit about myself. As I said, my name is Joelle Lydon, and I'm a relationship coach. And I have been coaching women for probably about 20 years, and not quite knowing that that's actually what I was doing. So I didn't actually become a certified professional coach until pretty recently, until about 5 years ago. And didn't go into coaching with the intention of working on relationships. I actually went into coaching with the purpose of helping women with their careers. And I still do to a large extent. But my area of specialty in the last 2 years, I'd say, has really shifted and changed. And I've become much more interested in the ways in which women relate to men and vice versa. And more than anything, looking to ease the communication and understanding between men and women. It's mostly fueled my desire to do so, to sort of balance that masculine and feminine, has primarily been fueled due to my own relationships, my previous relationships, and due to my own beliefs around men for the very, very longest time that created pain for me. And I was looking to create healing. And so this work came about as a result of that, really. So, and also due to the fact that in all of my research that I have done with men, all the reading, the workshops, and actually speaking with lots and lots and lots of men, I learned that men were not the way that I thought they were. I had some very interesting beliefs about them, and I discovered through my research, as well as through my own relationship, that my beliefs were completely erroneous, and that men actually come and show themselves quite differently from the way we typically as women tend to see them. So let's talk a little bit about some of the sort of miscommunication, some of the things that are going on for men and women. So let me just kind of like go back to my notes a little bit, and I just want to be able for you to kind of stay through this call so you can get the answers that you need. So let me talk about this a little bit. Let me find my notes. Right. So what about men? Some of the biggest things that I've seen women have to that they struggle with is some beliefs around men, and you may share some of these yourselves. And some of the beliefs that they have about men really center around the fact that they don't necessarily see men as men. I mean, they do. You do. We do. But we tend to treat them as if they were our girlfriends, as if they were our women friends. and we treat them as women, hairy women at that. And what happens is that when we do, and they don't behave the way, or they don't react the way that we think they ought to, and they don't react the way that we think they should, then we see them as these creatures that are just misbehaving, that are just not, that are doing things on purpose to make us crazy. And that couldn't be the farthest thing. It's the farthest thing from the truth. So one of the biggest things that is happening is that men and women are just not communicating really well. And so that's one of the first things that gets in the way of women. So I'm seeing that some of you are starting to come along, starting to come onto the call. I don't know if you can let me know somehow. There's a place on the side of the screen where you could ask questions and you can post your questions. So let me know with like a thumbs up, because I can see some of you on the screen. Let me know if you see that part of the screen or not. Do you have the place where you can show me where you can answer questions? Yes, here, testing, I see. Awesome. Good, good, good. So any of the questions that you have and you want to ask those, feel free to just type them in. And I've got some questions that women asked ahead of the game. And I have, of course, the ones that I could answer live. So let me just kind of continue with some of the places where women get stuck before we continue. So I said the first place that we get stuck is that we don't actually treat men the way they're supposed to be treated. We treat them like they're supposed to be, react and act like women, and they're not. They're not women, obviously. Women also get stuck in the fact that they think that men can read our minds, or that we can read what they say, and we tend to fill in the blanks with information, and that's because women tend to be a lot more intuitive, and that we can read what it is that we need from one another, and men actually just say what they mean. So if a man tells you that he's not interested on not interested on going on a date, or he can't go on a date, that's most likely the reason. He doesn't have an alternative agenda, so that can create some problems for women. Again, I'm sort of doing this, checking my notes and doing this at the same time, so it's kind of a little bit of a awkward situation. My first time using Google Hangouts, so you'll have to bear with me. One of the other things that women tend to do, some of the mistakes that they tend to make, is that they tend to not give enough space to a man to dock. And what do I mean by that? So they chase men away by chasing them in their desperation, in their neediness, and also in conversation. They will tend to talk over a man and not allow enough space for them to dock. And what do I mean by that is that, like, if you give a man space and you don't interrupt him while he's speaking, and so this causes some of the problems as well. You don't interrupt him while he's speaking, and in fact, you actually sit on your hands or sit on your tongue for probably about 10 to 30, maybe even a minute more than you would actually feel comfortable doing so. Then you'll probably get a lot more information from a man than you'd ever imagine possible. So sometimes just the fact that we talk a lot or that we chase after can create a lot of problems. A couple more things that I want to mention before we start getting into the Q&A part of this. The fact that that many women believe that men are just ignoring you because they're trying to be vindictive, and sometimes it's just because they're really just focused on one particular thing. So, for example, if they're ignoring you while they're watching TV or anything of that nature, it's not because they're ignoring you, and it's because they're really focused on the one thing. So I know I kind of like all over the place, but some of the questions sort of related to these things, so I figured I would just sort of give an overview altogether of some of the general areas where women seem to get themselves stuck. So let's get to some of the cues that I got from some of you. And again, I told you that I would not reveal your names. I'm really pretty clear on that. I just thought that it would be really The best way to do this would be just to keep this level of anonymity. If your question does not get asked or answered today, fear not. I suspect that another woman's question might answer your own. And so I'll get to the ones of the ones that were sent to me by women ahead of the game. And then if we have time, we'll get to the questions live. And then I just want to sort of give you sort of an overview of some of the things that you could consider as you move forward in your relationship with men altogether. So one of the first questions that I got was, what is the best time to let your partner know that you've had warts and likely still carry the HPV virus? I know it's very common, but it's still very embarrassing to talk about. I think I already know the answer, but I thought it would be good to get the question out there for those of us who may have had them but are too shy to ask. That's such a good question. Like, when do you bring up the really, the warts? Like, not just like the physical warts, but like the warts in your life. Like, it could be like, when do you bring up the fact that maybe you have children at home, or when do you bring up the fact that you're just separated, but you haven't quite divorced yet? So all those things that are considered a little bit sticky topics, the women will tend to avoid at the beginning because they get themselves stuck on the idea that he might just be the one. The answer to that question is really simple. It's actually, if you can, before the very first date, before you actually physically meet the person. And let me tell you why. Before any of this stuff happens, before any of this stuff goes on, before you start dating, women will tend to create a narrative in their head to fill in the blanks about the man that they're about to encounter. So they read the resume. They get a sense of like, okay, who is this man? Okay, he's got this kind of job. He's had this kind of relationship in the past. He has these interests, and whatever else is not being filled in by information gets filled in by a woman's own narrative. So where the narrative is, where the narrative might be. Sorry, I'm hearing a little bit of background noise. Let me see if I can sort of make adjustments on the volume here a little bit. Hang on, let me just make just a sec. Okay. So if you're actually online, if you could just mute yourself, that would be great, because I'm hearing some background noise. So where was I? So the question was, when do you introduce those sticky topics? And actually, it's right at the beginning. Before the stories are even created in your mind, and you begin to get yourself already attached to the idea that he might be the one, or that he might be potential. That's a really dangerous place. The moment that he's labeled potential, you actually don't even see the man. You just see the story that you've started to create around him, and so it becomes a problem. And the moment you label him as potential, then all of a sudden you think, well, I have to then become the thing that you believe he might want you to be, which means that you actually don't show up really authentically in the situation. So going back to that question, when do you actually reveal that kind of information? It's way, way, way at the beginning, maybe even before your first date, maybe even like on your first phone call, before you actually physically meet. And that will get the information out there. And it's actually your level of authenticity and honesty and genuine information. Honesty is like a biggie. Will basically be your best filter. So your ability to be honest, your ability to reveal that information will filter out the riffraff, because it's quite possible that you keep that information censored from him and hidden from him, and that could be a deal breaker for him. And you want to make sure you get all that information out of the way from the very, very beginning. Because essentially you'd like to be with a man who can accept and cherish and love every single face, every single part of you, warts and all. And so you want to make sure that you want to filter out the riffraff, the bottom feeders, the ones who could never accept that part of you, that aspect of you, and for whom that particular issue would be a deal breaker. So I hope that answers your cue. And that would be true for any information that is of a sticky nature, whether it has to do with physical health, whether it has to do with your family situation, whether you have children at home. So whatever it is that you're afraid to ask about or to reveal, my suggestion is to just reveal it from the very beginning. Get it out of the way. And then you know, like, do you continue to interact with this person or not? And then you can find the kind of person that you're looking for who might accept every single aspect of who you are, the totality of you, which is actually what you're looking for. Okay? All right, so let's see. Next question that I got here. What are some questions that I should ask before committing to a relationship with a man? That's such a juicy question. I love that. Because there are gobs of questions that you should probably ask. Not that you actually want to be in the dating interview. You don't want to create sort of a dating interview, but there's certainly some questions that you need to be asking both him and asking of yourself before you commit to a relationship. And I think the very, very first one, and it's one that most women tend to skip over, is the question, do I actually even trust the guy? Like, this is a gut feeling. This is not something that is logical necessarily. This is not a question that is, or, it's basically a gut thing. Because quite frankly, if you don't trust the guy, there's no way that the relationship could go anywhere. I mean, if you're looking for a partnership with a man, then you're looking to really take the risks as well as benefits from the relationship. And so it's like a business partnership. And so you have to be willing to do both. But the thing that is really required for that to actually happen is that you even trust the person in the first place. And I think oftentimes women, and I'm really guilty of this, do not listen to that it's still inner voice that says, run to the hills, because we're so desperate to be in a relationship, or we're so desperate to find the one, or we're really lonely, or our own particular love tank has been so empty that we're willing to overlook certain red flags for the sake of being with someone. And so that would be the very, very first question that I would ask myself is, do I even trust him? And if the answer is, and you can tell this from your body never lies to you. So if that sense from your body is like, yeah, I really do trust him, then I would say, great, keep going on your dates, keep moving forward, and that would be a good place to start. Another question that I would probably ask myself I would ask myself actually before I even ask the guy, would be like, am I actually even attracted to this person? Not like the physical aspect of him, like, because he could be like stunning, gorgeous stud muffin, right? And your body could be just so excited and jazzed about being in his presence, and but he could actually be not really aligned with you in many other aspects, meaning like his values could be really different, or his sense of what is right and wrong could be really, really different. So the question, are you attracted to this person, really doesn't have to do with his physicality, but more about his inner spirit. Are there values that you share, and are you attracted to those? And I have found that most women who will say yes to a relationship where there's just a physical, like animalistic kind of an attraction, those kinds of relationships tend to be kind of short-lived, because they just bypass those other really important questions that are necessary to sustain the long-term relationship. Like, do you share the same value system? Do you share the same philosophies on dating and children and family and communicating and how you deal with conflict? And those are the kinds of questions that are a little bit more thoughtful and are going to bring you to a deeper level of relationship with someone. And so I'm not asking you to date people that you would not be physically attracted to, but I can bet this, that I bet you've had situations where you've had conversations with men where you thought, ugh, they're not, they could be a great friend. But the more you speak to them, and the more you find that you have in common, and the more yourself you are with them, that they actually become more physically attractive to you. And so I don't want you to rule out men who may not necessarily be like stud muffins, because they have a great deal to share. And there's this added piece that with those men, you're more likely to be yourself. And you're more likely not to hide and have agendas and be strategizing around how to get the guy, or feel desperate or graspy or whatever it is. So the am I attracted to this person? That question really has to do with the idea of looking at the totality of who he is, rather than just his physicality. Another question that you might want to ask yourself before committing to a relationship with someone is, like, does this person challenge me? Like, not challenge me in a way that makes me crazy pants, like I'm constantly thinking about him and like, where is he right now, and you're having jealous whatevers. But really, is this person challenging me to be my highest and most, like, my highest potential? So is this person going to challenge me in that way? And I think that's really a good question. Because certainly if you're the kind of woman who likes to be on the cutting edge of her own personal growth and development, the last thing that you want to be doing is dragging a partner along who's not going to be on the same wavelength, because that means you're just going to sort of barrel ahead and he'll be dragging behind, and it's just not a good situation. You also have situations where you have a man who might be threatened by the fact that you're looking to continually become more and more evolved. And so you really want to sit in that question of, does this person really challenge me to be a better person? Does this person really looking for me to become my best self, and you looking for the same in him? Some other questions that you may want to consider in terms of, like, do I move forward, are, does he communicate? What are his love languages? Like, how does he communicate? And is that something that you can live with? What are your love languages? And for those of you who are not familiar with that particular work, it's the work of Dr. Gary Chapman. I love that work. And for those of you who are in long-term relationships, I certainly, and even like not even there yet, like you're just dating, I recommend that as a book for everyone. It's a short book, but it gives you a lot of information about the ways in which people receive love and give love, and how they hear best. So, or how they hear your love best. I know I'm not explaining it very well, but check out the book. Check out your local library or go to Amazon.com and find it. The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. Still on those questions about, like, should I, what are the questions around committing to someone? The questions to ask before committing to a relationship with a man. I'm still at that question. So, has he done his inner work? Have you done your inner work? Like, have you tackled your monsters? When you look at some of the work that is being done out there, like the work of David Data, and you look at some of the ways in which the kinds of men that you've attracted in the past, have you just replicated your own childhood shit? And do you continually attract the same kind of man, and he reminds you of the way your mother showed up, or the way that your father showed up, or the things that happened in childhood? Are you continually replicating that? And if so, are you willing to stay in relationship with this person to work that stuff out. So, so I think that's another really important question. Like, are you willing to stick with someone who you trust, with whom you share common values, person who challenges you, whose love languages you share or are willing to speak, who loves you from his strengths, not his insecurities, and has done that work. So, you know, you want to make sure that those things are also kept in consideration. And I think it's also really important to ask yourself the question, which I think a lot of women might ask themselves, but they don't necessarily stick to, are what are your deal breakers? Like, for example, maybe smoking is a deal breaker to you. Maybe drinking is a deal breaker to you. You want to know, like, what are your deal breakers? Like, is cheating a deal breaker for you? It could be, it couldn't be. It all depends on the kind of relationship that you've, you know, that you're willing to be in. So whatever those deal breakers are, you know, are you also willing not to compromise yourself for those deal breakers? Women tend to compromise themselves, men not so much. They're really clear on their deal breakers, and they won't necessarily compromise themselves on those. Like, once you've crossed the line, that's like it. And so we as women tend to be a little bit more wishy-washy about that. So just, I think it's still a really good question to sit in and ask yourself. All right, hopefully that kind of answers some of the questions that maybe you need to ask yourself while, you know, before committing to a relationship. Hopefully that helps you out a little bit. Another question that showed up. Let's see, here we go. Oh, this is a good one. I like that. How do you trust after you've been in a bad relationship? That's a really big one. And I know it's really, really difficult to feel like you can trust at all after you've been in a bad relationship. And I've had my share. I've been like, really, I've had my share, and I can so get that question. I so get it. And I think the question is mostly not how do you trust, or like how can I trust somebody else in a relationship. Oftentimes when women ask me that question, like, how can I trust another man again? Like, how can I ever trust that man, another man? I think the question really is like, how can I really trust myself not to make a shitty choice? And yeah, and I think that's a really interesting question. And oftentimes, you know, women will tell me, well, I don't trust men, and I get that also. But there was some research done recently that I read about that was actually pretty interesting, and I won't give you all the details, but the idea was that there was some interviews, there were some students that were chosen, or that they used for this research to basically assess their level of trust. So they were assessed as to whether they were like high trusters, do they really trust people? Or are they really just low trusters? Do they not trust people at all? And so they took a little assessment. Do they trust, or are they just not really trusting at all? And then after that, they had them sit and watch a series of, you know, clearly planted interviews to identify whether the person being interviewed was actually telling the truth or lying. And so one would have thought that the people who didn't trust would be really good at identifying the liars, but it actually turned out that the data revealed something really altogether different. That actually the people who were high trusters, the ones who could really trust well, or trust people in general, were actually much better equipped at being able to identify the liars. And so it was really interesting. And what they found out was that the people who were high trusters were better equipped at seeing body language and signs that that revealed that lies were taking place. And so they were able to identify signs that like the low trusters couldn't see at all. So, you know, so the question of like, how do I trust after a bad relationship? You know, especially if you're in that place of like, I don't trust men. I think really the question is, how do you get to a place where you trust yourself, and trust yourself to make a better choice and to make to see things in a different way. Because if you're in a place where you don't trust men, the chances are is that you'll continually, if this research is true, and I believe that it has a great deal of validity, and you're not trusting right now, then I think it sort of invites you to look at your own trust issues and find a way of beginning to trust again. And so that being able to trust again is something that's really necessary for you to be able to make the right kinds of choices. I'm hearing a little bit of noise again, so if you can put yourselves on mute, that would be awesome, on the call. So what do you do to start to trust yourself again? I think part of it, because a lot of my philosophy in the last year or so has really changed around my coaching and around the way that I conduct things. And the biggest piece for me, and I think I was sort of going in this direction when I first started teaching my Dare to Love Greatly class, was that the most important guidepost for women was to love themselves. And I firmly believe that, and it's actually even more solid a belief now. Because once you start to love yourself, right, once you start to do things that place you on a pedestal, like you're doing that for yourself, then your feelings about the world begin to change. And then the next piece for you as a woman is to then begin to love your life. So once you love yourself, it starts to sort of ripple out into your life. And this is completely separate from men altogether. And so how do you find then ways to begin to love your life, love your career? Even if you're in a shitty career, how do you begin to love that, and make the best of it while you're at it until you can make change? How do you love the relationships that you have with your friends, the relationship that you have with your body? How do you change your perspective on these things and begin to really, really love your life? So once those two things are really established, then that level of trust becomes more easy, because your love bucket, your love tank is really quite full. And I think when a woman is full of self-love, there's no way on God's green earth that you can pull the wool over her eyes. There's just there's a level of confidence in knowing that happens when your love tank is full that could just never happen when you're feeling like you need to be completed by somebody else. And so that trust comes, I think, as a result of that. And once that happens, there is no doubt that you have the ability to experience extraordinary, deep and soulful love. There's no doubt in my mind. So really, it's not so most women have it backwards. They usually say, well, once I experience deep, soulful love, but I don't trust men, so now you'll probably not make the best choices. Then my life will feel good. Then I'll be happy, right? So that's typically how women sort of approach this dating thing, this relationship thing. But I'm asking you to sort of turn that whole idea around and start with the self-love first. Then once you've got that and your love tank is really full and you feel really juiced up and turned on by yourself, then just adding that extra piece of how do you dial this out into your life? How do you feel juiced up and turned on and really jazzed about your life? And begin to fill your tank around your life. And it's only when those two cairns, for lack of a better, these are the first cairn is your self-love. The second rock would be your love of your life. The last piece is experiencing that deep, soulful love. And so the only way to get to that trust after a bad relationship, my answer, love the shit out of yourself. Find ways to treat yourself like the goddess, like the queen that you are. And it doesn't have to take money. I mean, yes, you can go out, get yourself massages and pedicures and manicures, but it could also mean you're going to take an hour of your time just to pour yourself a gorgeous bath with Epsom salts and lavender oil and rose petals on in your bath, and beautiful music and a lovely glass of wine, and just complete quiet for an hour. Or it could mean lathering your body with the most delicious lotion that you own, or wearing your favorite perfume that you only save for special occasions just because, or wearing your matching panties and bra set that make you feel like the bomb diggity. So just all these little steps that you can take to just sort of fill your tank will begin to help you feel more trusting of yourself, more confident in yourself, and therefore more trusting of people and the world. And then you'll more likely be able to identify those red flags that perhaps as a person who didn't trust men or didn't trust people or didn't trust altogether could never, ever identify. I hope that answers that question. Next question here. Why do men stop calling? And why can't they tell at least, they can't, hang on, let me reread this. I'm still hearing a little bit of noise in the background, so you can just mute yourself, that'll be great. So why do men stop calling, and why can't they at least tell you that they're not interested instead of dropping off the planet? And why do I keep attracting men like this? I would say see previous question. This is kind of like, it's a connection to the previous question, like, why do men stop calling? Well, first of all, I'm sorry, I'm making adjustments on the seat here, but first of all, it's probably a good thing if they stop calling. Again, that goes back to that filtering system. Like, if he stops calling, it's probably because you're off his radar. And it could be for several reasons. But this is not a time to start reading his mind, which is what a lot of women will do. Well, like, what is he thinking? Doesn't he like me? He should at least, send me a text that allows us to break up, Men don't think like that. So if he stopped calling, most likely he's just, like, not interested. If he were, he would let you know that he's got stuff going on, or maybe, or he might a little bit later. But going back, this is going back to sort of like one of the original questions. Like, if he stops calling, then you're probably not a priority. And quite frankly, if you're not a priority, then he's not worth your time. Honestly, he's not. So, and this also goes to making space for him. Giving him the space that he needs, but also showing up not as desperate or grispy or graspy, because if you do, then they'll go running for the hills. So if and this is going back to sort of like that self-love love tank, filling up your love tank. If you're showing up to these dates or showing up to a relationship desperate and graspy, the likelihood of him sticking around is pretty slim to none. Nobody likes a leech. Nobody wants to be leeched upon. So, so it's really important that you take care of yourself. So why isn't he calling back? So, my advice to you is just to move on and go like, yep, awesome. He's not interested in me. Great. Then that's good. I can just move on and go on to the next one. And why is it that you could continually be attracting men like this? Could very well be that you have a lot going on. You probably have a lot going on, but are really in a place where you're feeling that a man's love or a man's presence or a man's company would make you feel complete. And I'm going to go back to that initial thing, that the only person that could really make you feel complete in a sustainable way is you. Like that initial falling in love that makes your life feel like it's filled with stars and birds, like in Snow White, and singing birds and talking animals and whatever. That falling in love feeling is actually it's just a temporary thing. So once you fall out of love, which could be anywhere from a couple of weeks to 2 years. It could go on for 2 years where you're still in the in love experience, obsession, if you will, on an oxytocin high. And you will find that once you're out of that in love experience, you'll start noticing all the things that you didn't notice before about the man. All the ways where he's got weaknesses, or all the places where he's got holes. And this is, oftentimes where things start to fall apart. Some people get married while they're still in the in-love experience, and they fall out of love while married, and then they realize, shit, what the hell did I do? And then they realize also, like, I still feel empty. Like, I thought I was in love, and I thought he was the one, but now I don't feel like I'm still in love, and like I still feel really empty. So, one of the reasons why you could still be attracting this kind of guy is that you may have a lot of things going on, but you may be really empty right now, and he can sense that from you. And a lot of men prefer, like, one of the biggest things, one of the most attractive things men find in a woman is a level of confidence. That is, like, really a turn on for a man. And not a fake, like, I'm all that in a bag of chips kind of confidence. You know what I'm talking about? Like, that kind of thing. But really that confidence that only comes when you feel really, really content on your own. Like, having a man in your life would actually be an enhancement to a life already really well lived. It would be an enhancement to the kind of joy that you already feel, the contentment you already have, the love that you already experience from yourself and from your life. So yeah, that's something for you to consider and think about as you're progressing forward. And again, it goes back to that, love yourself, love your life, and then you'll experience deep, soulful, amazing love. Okay, moving on. Oh, here's a juicy one. And, although, I'm going to try to answer it to the best of my ability, although my experience was a little bit different. So the question is, how do you keep the spark after 29 years of marriage? I was married 12 years. I was together for 16. So at 29 years, woohoo, kudos. And that's a challenge. That's a real challenge, especially when, you've gone, and I'm going to assume that you were married young, and it's difficult to keep the spark when you've gone through the in-love experience, you've had your children, you've had your jobs, you're busy living your own lives, and it's quite possible that you're asking the question because maybe you're feeling that you're and we talked about this earlier in the call, moving a little bit farther ahead, more evolved. I hate to use that term, but like feeling like you're progressing in your personal growth, and he may be not there, and you're wondering like how the two of you connect, how the two of you can reconnect. And as I said, I mentioned earlier the 5 Love Languages book. I think that's an excellent place to start. It's quite possible that in your marriage and in the busyness of your lives, you've lost touch with the kind of way that you receive love, or that you hear love, or you may be thinking that you're saying to him that you love him, but he's not hearing you. Or maybe he's telling you how much he loves you, but you're not hearing him. Just as quite a little brief overview, like in terms of the love languages, you may want to consider like, how do you share your love with him? Do you show your appreciation for him? Do you use words of appreciation and encouragement, and gratitude? Does he? Are you the kind of person who thinks that love could be best received with a show of gifts? It could be like flowers every once in a while just because, or a text that he sends you because he's just thought about you in the middle of the day. Could it be that you receive love best, or you hear love best, if you spend quality time together? And quality time could mean like, you go for an hour walk with a dog, but you just connect, and not in like the, okay, how do we take care of the children, and who's doing the chauffeuring this week? Not those kinds of conversations, but like, how are you doing in your life? Like, where are we at? So having really deep, meaningful conversation and quality time together. The other language that could be that you could sort of look into is like touch. I know for guys, sex is a big thing. Well, excuse me, for women as well. It's high on my value and priority list. I know that keeps my love tank full. But touch, like not just sex touch, but like the kinds of touches of, you walk past each other in the kitchen and he places your hand on your shoulder, or you do the same to him, or you just give him a peck on the cheek. Those small touches that don't necessarily lead up to sex, but just show that person that you're around and that you love them and that you value their presence. And then the last one, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a brain fart. What's the last? So we got gifts, touch, words of appreciation, quality time. Oh, acts of service. That's the last love language. So what does acts of service look like? Like maybe, it could be that, making sure that your tank that your hands never touch the gas tank, that your car is always full, is his way of telling you he loves you. He's not saying it in words, but because he doesn't want you to get your pretty little hands dirty with gas, it's just his way of letting you know that he loves you. So, how do you keep the spark going? I think one is to revisit where you are in terms of the way that you show your love with one another to make sure that you're receiving it. But I think it goes back to that previous question, the question prior to that, which is what are you doing to fill your love tank? For yourself. What are you doing to take care of yourself and making yourself a priority, and doing those little teeny things that as women we think are like frivolous and ridiculous for us to do, like a bath. Really, seriously, Joelle, are you kidding me? That's going to solve all my freaking problems, my relationship problems? No, but sure as hell is going to make you feel better, right? It's sure as hell going to make you feel like you're being taken care of. And when a woman feels like she's taken care of, somehow that shifts things for her. Somehow that just changes her perspective. So that's where I'm going to go with that answer of going back to your own tank, but also looking at how it is that you're showing your love to him and how he's showing your love to you. Okay, let me see. I think one more. Do we have one more? Hang on, let me just go down. I just put them all on a word thing here. He's been separated for 4 years and his divorce is imminent. He's clearly not ready for marriage, but I am. What do I do? Awesome question. I can totally relate. Absolutely can totally relate to this one. Here's the question. Does this man have game? Like we talked earlier in the call, this is not a call, this is hangout. We talked earlier, or I spoke earlier about some of the questions that you want to ask yourself about being in a relationship with a man, like that would make you think about, do I want to continue to be in a relationship with him? One of the questions also, and I would add this, is does he have game? Meaning like, when you look at this man and you see the future, clearly you've been together for a while, and you see the future with him, will he show up the way that you wish for him to? Will he be able to support you in the way that you're looking to be supported? Or have you been a distraction to him? And so those are really serious questions for you to ask yourself right now. And the question is, like, what is your time limit? Women tend to have time limits when it comes to certain objectives and desires and goals in their lives, and that's primarily due to the fact that, like, physically we've had time limits. Like we only have so many eggs for so much time, so we have our biological clocks ticking, and so time is a really important piece for women, not so much for men. So the question that you have to ask yourself is like, does this guy have game? Is he somebody worth waiting for? Are you willing to wait? Or do you have a time frame that you're working with right now? And if that is the case, then I think this is a perfect opportunity to have a conversation with him about your desire and about his readiness to align with that. So it's quite possible that you're thinking to yourself, like, in the next year I'd like to be married, or in the next year I'd like a level of commitment from him. Having a conversation with him about that without putting pressure on him, just saying, like, listen, this is something that I've always thought I wanted for myself. Where are you at with this? So you don't want to lay blame or accuse or have a really charged conversation around it, but just really getting a sense from him, because quite frankly, I mean, if he's just getting out of a long marriage, and he's going through a divorce process, he's in the process of healing, and you have to decide whether you want to stick around for the whole process for him to catch up to where you are, and having a conversation with him to get a sense of where he's at and what his time frame is a way to go, but to do it in a way where you're not putting pressure on him, and you're not laying blame, and you're not saying, well, or you're not laying down gauntlets and saying, well, this is my timeline, shit or get off the pot. But you really just want an open and honest conversation, and once you get your answer, then you can make a decision. Right, is this somebody that I'm willing to wait for so that my desire gets to manifest, or do I have to make a decision about moving on? So hopefully that answers your question a little bit. Okay, I've got one on the side here. Not sure if you have time. We've got 7 minutes. Thought I'd submit a question. I found the last remaining piece of my puzzle, which is, oh, this is such a juicy one, deep resentment, rage towards men. This keeps me from experiencing a successful relationship. Okay, so I'm curious, like, I got that part, and yeah, but what's the question? Can you type in the question for me? Like, what is the actual question that you're asking me? So, can you type that in for me? Oh, what to do with rage? Ooh, such a juicy thing.
I'm on a conference call. Let me call you right back.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Can you? All right. Somebody's on a conference call, or just call. Can you press mute for yourselves? What to do with rage? Feel it. Until you address your rage, until you really, really address your rage, your anger towards men, it'll be really difficult for you to attract the kind of relationship that you're looking for. Men can smell rage, men can smell anger from miles away, and will never really commit to a woman who's in that place. I mean, honestly, like, you think about this, would you want to be in relationship with a man who's really pissed off at women? So this is a toughie, because it's a question that requires you to be self-responsible. The first piece, which I'm so glad you asked about, is like that rage piece, like just acknowledging the fact that you're frickin' pissed off at men, and beginning to dig down to the roots, figure out where did the rage start from, but not to lay blame. Like, I could say, like, in my experience, my rage, my anger stemmed from my father. And it'd be really easy for me to lay blame, look out the window and point at him as the cause to all of my relationship issues. But I'm 51. I'm going to go on 52. And laying blame on my daddy for my relationship issues is not going to, it's me choosing to remain a victim. So owning the rage and feeling the rage and writing the rage and dancing the rage and pounding pillows with the rage and crying out the rage and crawling through the rage, that is landscape we're not necessarily invited to experience as women. That's not a place we're typically allowed to go. A woman who's angry is considered a bitch. Women are not allowed, or it's not acceptable for a woman to express her anger. And so I invite you to do just that, but not to use your anger and dump it on a person. Okay, so don't take that anger, but what I invite you to do is to be responsible in owning your anger and finding an expression for it that feels right. Now, if you give yourself permission to go through different kinds of, and I give you just a whole bunch of examples of what you could do to just sort of tap into it. You could actually make yourself a rage playlist and dance your rage. Dance the shit out of your rage and the injustice and the way that it's fucked things up for you. So you could start with just dancing it out, pounding it out on pillows, screaming it out loud, but doing it in a place that feels safe for you, and in a way that is not injurious to you. So you're not doing anything to hurt yourself, but what you're doing is you're creating space for you to feel it. And once you feel, because you'll notice that the more you do this, because it actually becomes a practice, the more you give yourself permission to express it in a healthy way, and you give it voice, the less it will have control over you. The less it'll dictate the way that you lead your life. Because I'm fairly certain that the rage is not going to just show up in relationships with men, but it may actually ooze out to other parts of your life as well. So you might really benefit by giving yourself permission to just access it and voice it, but create a container for it that feels right for you and safe for you. Tell me if you have any questions in addition to that. You hear? Okay, I hear. You understand? Okay, beautiful. Is there any other piece that you want me to add to this? Or is there, not that you want me to, any other piece of it that you want me to kind of, any other sort of like micro question? Yeah, it seems that there's no end to it. I totally get that. I totally get to it. But the thing is, the more you deny it, the more power it holds over you. Right? So the more you deny it, the more power it has over you. So I think this is a question for so many women. Like, there are women out there saying, like, men are pigs, I fucking hate men. You know, you're not the only one experiencing this. So for right now, because we got like 1 more minute for the call, so we'll just kind of leave it at that. We'll leave it at that, and hopefully, hopefully it'll create space for you inside, and see how that goes. So we've come to the end of our hour. I hope I've answered some of your questions, that you feel like you've gotten some pearl, something that you can take away, even if your question wasn't answered. Hopefully another woman's question gave you something that you could sort of sink your teeth into. I'm really excited to have done this. I'm thinking about doing this as a monthly event. And so I'll let you know. Make sure that you sign up for my newsletter, and that's the way that I can kind of let you know that this is going on. And also, If you're looking to do a one-on-one coaching session with me, sort of like a breakthrough session, feel free to contact me. I can definitely offer that to you so that we can look at your specific question and we can spend a full hour exclusively devoted to the particular struggle that you're having right now in your love, in your relationship, in your dating, with your man, in your marriage, and see if we can actually create a plan that feels like, and create space for you where you feel like, yeah, I can move a little bit, I can move further into my life, feeling like things are going the way they're supposed to, at least for right now. So I'm so psyched that you came. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming here and for your questions, for your honesty, your sincerity, your willingness to show up with such a level of vulnerability. I thank you. And I wish you the best. I hope to keep in touch with you, and we'll talk to you soon. Mwah! Sending all my love. I'm checking out, checking off. Bye.